a sweet hat, bro.
Like the hat.
Dude, that's the first one. Show that to the camera, bro. That's like, is that embroidered on there? How's the stitching? Is that stitched on there on the logo?
Yeah, it's stitched on there. Yeah, it's
Hold that up. Hold that up one more
nice
time.
and simple. And I mean, does it read backwards to your camera? It looks backwards on my camera, but
It might be
um,
backwards on, it's
just
reading
because of the
front.
way the camera
It's
looks at
reading
it.
frontwards
But
on my camera.
okay, all right. Well,
So,
maybe it's just backwards on my view.
dude,
Um, but
that looks
yeah,
sweet, bro.
this showed up in the mail the other day, and I'm happy to have it.
All right, everyone, just so you know, you can get your Recliner Sports Report hat on our Recliner Sports Report merch store. That's the Keep the Change OG, only on the Recliner Sports Report merch store.
I am.
That looks nice, dude. I'm glad.
Yeah, I like it. I like
That's
it. It
like
came
the
out good.
first one
Super
that got sent out
simple,
too.
clean. Um, yeah,
Well, welcome back, Recliner Sports Reporters, to another Knockout Bets podcast. What a crazy, crazy fight card we had last weekend. I'm disappointed because I don't think this weekend's gonna do anything close to what we got to watch uh,
no, I
last
think
weekend.
this is one of the worst cards we've seen in a while, but
Yeah.
there's still
Um,
some interesting fights, sort of.
yeah, definitely there's some cool fights. Like I know a couple that we're going to talk about. There's some people that you like watching when they come on. So, definitely pumped for that. But yeah, man, Islam, before we get started, dude, what's your thoughts
That was
on
an epic, 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 epic fight. I was so impressed with Volkanovski. That's my biggest takeaway. I I I didn't know because I can't see the future, but I was very, very confident that Islam was going to win the fight. Um, and I thought he was going to finish it. I thought he was going to sub him like second, third round, and that ended up being a very, very close fight. I mean, I still had it scored 49-46 for Islam myself, but I think there were a couple scorecards that were 48-47. I mean, Volk hung in. He was tough. He dropped him a couple of times. Um, I mean, he showed why meaning Volkanovski, is the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. To go up a weight class against an absolute killer like Islam, and to put on a performance like that, how could you not be impressed? Even in a loss by Volkanovski there.
Yeah, dude, that was 100% epic. I am hats off to Volkanovski. I think it was judged pretty accurately. I think for me, the coin flip round for me was round three. I think that was the one that was it could have went either way. But four definitely went to Islam. Five definitely went to Volk. Um,
No doubt.
I I saw it as round one. Um, going to Islam and round two going to Volk. But, again, that the judges all put rounds one and two to Islam's, as you could tell why he ended up getting the win. But all in all, man, I thought it was great. I think he showed a lot of holes in uh Islam's style, man. Like I think his gas tank got questioned. I mean, if you're going to be a champ, you got to be able to go 5 rounds. Now he hasn't had to because he's finished guys so early. But if you got a guy that's going to be able to go 5 rounds and be able to defend your and stuff your takedowns and not have that much let you do that much damage, like, you got to find some other way to dig out and win. And Islam's got a lot. He's got to go back to the lab and clean up that stuff. Um, but we're also talking about Volkanovski here, so he's a different human being as he just showed
One of the
altogether.
greatest fighters of all time. I
Yeah,
mean, and it's interesting to me, like Islam won the fight and he won it pretty clearly, but the way in which he won it, even though he won it clearly, we're sitting here praising Volkanovski, and talking about holes in Islam's game. So it's
Yep.
interesting takeaways from an epic fight between probably, I mean, they're the number one and number two pound for pound guys in the world right now for a reason.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't I'm excited to see that rematch if it does happen. I do think Volk respects Yair enough, but I think there was a
that's
little
the
bit of
next fight.
but
That's the
there was
next
some
fight is
stuff
Volkan
that
Yair.
there was some stuff that came up after the fight about Islam talking a little bit of smack, and Volk after the fight Volk was all about like, hey, I gotta go, let me go defend my belt, let them do whatever they got to do up here, and then if we can run it back, we definitely want to run it back. But he recently has changed his attitude to say, you know what, Yair, you go defend your title. And I think I need to take care of business back. So we may be getting a
We'll see
rematch
what
quicker.
happens.
Um, yeah, I don't. Did you hear there was some recent accusations thrown around about Islam using
Using
IV?
IVs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that,
Well,
man?
and then it came out that like he's allowed to if it's administered by a doctor. Like that whole situation is just weird. So pretty much, I guess if his camp is saying he's allowed to if it's administered by a doctor, they're admitting that he did it. If it's true that he did it in a way that's not against the rules, then I don't think anybody can really have a problem with it. Um, as long as you're not breaking the rules. And, whether the rule is the right thing or not, that's, I guess, where the debate is. Um,
So as a whole, I don't think IVs should be considered banned. I don't, because they are banned. So use of IVs in the rules, because I looked this up. It is banned. No matter if it's administered, whoever, however it is, it's banned. Um, but I don't agree that it should be banned. I see why. It's because it encourages people to cut more weight because they know they can just get an IV and juice
right.
back up. But in the fact that it is banned and you did it, if you did do it, that's cheating. I do think there should be something that should be like that. I don't unnecessarily think
So I guess the
it helped
question
them at
is, what
all,
is
but
the rule? Because, yeah,
you can't athletes, it's banned for use in the UFC. It's a ban. It's just like on the
okay.
banned
So I don't know
substances.
why somebody would say then that like you're allowed to do it if it's administered by a doctor. That the whole thing is weird.
It is. And I don't
Um,
think it helped him at all because he clearly gassed out. So it didn't really help him. But he did do something that was illegal, and there should be something if he did it. But nonetheless, conspiracy to keep everything interesting for sure. But that moves us to UFC Fight Night. We got Andrade versus Blanchfield. Um, I'm gonna say it now. I'm not 100% excited, although I do like watching uh, Blanchfield. I think she's been really electric the last couple fights, but definitely not like, oh, this is the one I've been looking forward to all year. I think this past weekend was the one that I was super pumped for. So definitely like it's hard to live up to. So I think timing wise, this one came up at a bad time. That's all I'm trying to
and
say on
and
that.
this card top to bottom is one of the weaker cards the UFC's put out recently. I mean, it's one that like if you're a casual fan coming off the last weekend, like you might skip this one entirely.
And
Um,
it's an early fight card too on the same weekend where Tiger might possibly make the cut. Yeah, although he even today he just finished shooting a oh, pretty much some would say the best score there is in golf, a 69. Um, so Tiger
that's
is finishing the day at -2 in contention. So this could be one of those ones where people might be watching golf instead of fighting, and not a card that you're gonna really miss out on anyways.
I mean,
Um,
thank goodness though that we're not going to be watching Jordan Wright and Zach Pauga at 12:30 at night and watching the main event
no.
at 1 a.m. now. I
I
mean,
would
like,
not watch
thank
that.
goodness for it being an afternoon card, actually.
Yeah, I would not be watching this if this was a late night card. All right, so that takes us our fights that we've picked tonight. I think are some good ones though. We have some really good big names on there, some interesting talents and some interesting matchups. Um, And I think a little
Oop,
bit
you're
here,
breaking up on me.
is that you there now? And I think a little bit to oh yeah, my
Yeah,
yeah,
now we're clear.
a little bit, some exciting, some possibilities to make a little bit of coin here. So the first fight we're going to talk about is Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez. Jim Miller is the underdog at plus 190. He's coming in at 35-16. You gotta love Jim Miller. He's a vet in the UFC. He's so fun to watch. Going against
Future Hall
Alexander
of Famer.
Going against Alexander Hernandez, who's coming in at 13-6, and I'm seeing a line right now. He is the favorite at minus 235. Go ahead, Andrew. Let us know how you think this one's going to play out.
Yeah, Jim Miller is a legend. Jim Miller is a high level grappler. Jim Miller is super tough. Jim Miller has also been in a lot of wars over a long period of time. He has the record for wins in the UFC. He fought at UFC 100, UFC 200, and his goal is to have his retirement fight at UFC 300, which isn't all that far away. So it seems likely that he'll make it to that, and that's a pretty cool accomplishment to probably be the only guy fighting at UFC 100, 200, and 300. Um, Alexander Hernandez is wild. He's inconsistent. He is coming in on short notice in this fight. He's got solid wrestling. He has heavy power in his hands. I mean, one of the biggest upsets in recent memory that I can remember is Alexander Hernandez in his debut on short notice, knocking out Beneil Dariush in like under 30 seconds, I think it was. Huge upset there, but then has some questionable losses, has some cardio issues after the first round. I mean, we saw that pretty clearly in his last fight against Billy Q. Um, this one's tough, and I actually have two bets on this fight, and I don't love either one of them, but I'll tell you what they are because I think it tells the story of this fight. So I bet um, Jim Miller on the money line. I think if this thing gets past round one, that plus 200 on Jim Miller starts to look really good. I kind of regret that bet a little bit, honestly, because I think the better way to play this might be just to see if Jim Miller is still alive after round one and then live bet him at that point. Um, but yeah, no, I like the plus 200. You could also look at Jim Miller inside the distance, looking at like a second or third round finish. Um, and Mike, I mean, might you definitely would get some better odds than the money line. So that's another way to look at it. And I also played Alexander Hernandez by knockout in the first round. That was plus 310. And so I kind of feel like I hedged the Miller bet by taking a smaller bet on Hernandez winning in the first round. Jim Miller is old. Jim Miller has been through a lot of wars. And Hernandez is the younger, stronger, faster guy that really should win this fight. I mean, he's not a minus two whatever favorite he is by accident. On paper, he's the guy that should win the fight. I just think if Jim Miller, who's really tough, he's only been knocked out twice in his career. And I think the last time was in like 2016. It's been a while. Um, if he survives round one, I think we could see a turning of the tides, and I like Jim Miller to win.
Yeah, I'm also on Jim Miller here. I look at, Hernandez's last couple fights. He's been finished. Also, his fights that he has won, it's been finished early. So, and then you're going against Jim Miller, who's on a nice little win streak here, against some really good competition. And again, he's been around. He knows how to execute and get a good game plan. I do worry about the first round, but I think he's so smart. I mean, again, this guy just knows how to stay out of trouble, and I know he knows how to apply pressure. So I think it's Jim comes with if he has a good game plan, executes a game plan. I see Jim Miller coming away with a really gritty victory, possibly with a finish. If not, definitely a decision. I think he definitely knows how to get a win on the scorecards. He knows how to and when to get the job done, when to sneak in a takedown, when to apply pressure, when to close the gap, when to stay out of harm's way. So as long as he can stay away from a finish, getting finished out of that first round, I think everything here just is gonna his gas tanks, rock solid. So I'm liking Jim Miller, and I love the plus line. I like your idea with it with the waiting after the first round. But I would say I feel confident locking in the money line here, and that's definitely a lot of good value putting that on Jim Miller. I really really like this one.
I love it, and I love when we're on the same side with a plus 200 bet. Makes
Yeah,
me
I
feel
think
good.
I think there's a lot of value there. It makes me wonder why. I mean, I'm guessing the plus 200 is because it's he's older, and Alexander Hernandez is got a lot of he can finish guys really quick. He's got a lot of power,
He's
but
super athletic. He's got good wrestling. He does have that power.
but
Yeah,
I like the value side on Miller, and I like it's mostly like same kind of when we get like these type of fighters. It's like you know what you're betting on, and you know what you're betting on with Jim Miller. Speaking about knowing what you're betting on, we got William Knight. Our next fight, we're looking at minus 120, slight favorite there. He's coming in at 11-4. He's going against Marcin Pachinio coming in at the slight underdog at plus 100. This is a light heavyweight bout. Marcin is coming in at 15-6. Let me know what's your thoughts on this one. What you got for this one?
yeah. I think honestly that both of these guys are not that good. I would be scared to have money on either side of this fight. My pick is going to be William Knight. He's a beast. He's super athletic, super powerful. He can wrestle a little bit. He's low volume at times, but if he connects, he can put you to sleep. And he does have a little bit of wrestling in his back pocket. His takedowns aren't super technical, but he's so just incredibly athletic and strong that he can muscle through some takedowns at times. Um, Prachnio can get hit. He at one point was knocked out in the first round 3 times in a row. He also has suspect takedown defense. We saw that in his last fight against Felipe Lins. Prachnio is just not that good either. I mean, he hits hard. He's a light heavyweight. Most of those guys hit hard. Um, he probably will have better striking range. He definitely will have better volume than William Knight. This fight, it's lined pretty closely. I think it's lined about accurately at minus 120 for William Knight, but I'd be scared to have money on either guy here. I can see either guy getting a finish. I can also see this being a super, super boring fight where they stand and stare at each other a lot. I just I can't trust either guy, and so I'm passing on this fight entirely.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one. I'm not really I don't like trusting William Knight. There was a couple of fights that we've bet on him, and it just hasn't gone the way um, that I like. Specifically, his last fight against Devin Clark. Um,
And that
I
one was at heavyweight. He was 251 pounds for that fight, and now he's gonna try to make 205. After the last time he tried to make 205, he missed by 13 pounds. So just seeing how he weighs in is going to be interesting too.
Yeah, if you're looking for me, I'm with you. I'm not putting either of these guys in anything. I think this is gonna be one of those ones where I'm gonna see how the night plays out, and if I'm feeling a little dangerous, I may look at Night by KO. I may look at that for
I
a prop
wouldn't
bet.
fault you on that one.
Yeah, and I think I'm just gonna kind of see how it all plays out, knowing how I am, just because I'm gonna want a little bit of something on while I'm watching it. I'm probably gonna go with that route, but to take either of these guys straight up, I wouldn't feel safe, and I wouldn't advocate as a handicapper, I guess you would say, on picking a side on either one of these. So I think the only really value you see this, I think maybe if you're really also looking for an angle, the under could work. But like Andrew was saying, you could see a fight where these guys are just feeling each other out for the whole entire fight and nothing, not a lot happens, and you're kind of it. You were like, "What did I just watch?" And then it just slips away from you.
And then
So
it's over.
yeah, so you're
Yep.
like, I would say if there's any angle, which I again tread very carefully, the only angle I know I'm betting, and I wouldn't even suggest it, but the one I'm going to take is William Knight by knockout.
Yeah, I don't hate that as an angle for this fight. That's a decent way to look at it. Um, Depending what the number is, of course, too. But yeah.
All right, that takes us to our next fight that we're suggesting to watch tonight or on for Saturday. Jordan Wright, 12-4, plus 210 underdog going against Zach Pagua, minus 270 coming in at 6-1. I'm really excited. I like watching Zach Pagua. I mostly because of the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
And I thought he had fought a pretty good fight against Muhammad Usman. It just happens that Muhammad Usman at any point in time has that electric power. I do think that Pau was on pace to get a victory in that fight. But that just shows he's got that Usman power, man. So no loss on that for me. Um, I do think the line is wide, but Jordan Wright has also been questionable too. So, especially his last couple fights. So, talk to me. What do you think? How do you see this one playing out?
So my first thought on this one is, pardon my language, but how the fuck is this the co-main event on any card? These dudes, neither one of them deserves to be here. I mean, Pauga is 0-1 in the UFC, as you mentioned, got knocked out by Muhammad Usman in the finale of the Ultimate Fighter, and Jordan Wright seems like the wind could knock him out. And I think he's lost 3 fights in a row, and he's like 2-4 in the UFC. Like, what are these guys doing here? Why is not like Jim Miller and Alexander Hernandez is a better option? Seems like to me to be the co-main event of this card. But like, what are these guys doing here is question number one. Anyway, since they are here, um, we all know that I have a rule in Jordan Wright fights, which is bet against Jordan Wright. And usually that works out pretty well.
That goes back to like
Um,
episode 2, I'm pretty sure. Whenever,
right, right. I remember seeing him get knocked out on the Contender Series by Anthony Hernandez, who is not a power puncher, and knocked out pretty quickly and pretty convincingly. And ever since then, I've been on the fade Jordan Wright train. He's won a couple of fights, but I just don't think this guy is UFC level. I mean, we've seen him go from like a killer be killed guy who would just come out absolutely wild and was gonna finish or be finished like within the first 3 minutes of the first round, into a guy that went, oh, okay, now I've gotten knocked out a few times. Now I'm going to try to be a wrestler. And that hasn't really worked out for him either. And now we're seeing what's interesting about this fight is Pauga's last fights were at heavyweight. He's a natural light heavyweight, natural 205, but he went up for the opportunity to be on the Ultimate Fighter, and that obviously worked out pretty well for him getting to the finals there and getting a UFC contract out of it. And Jordan Wright has been fighting at 185. So we're seeing guys come from opposite weight classes and meet in the middle at 205. Um, Jordan Wright's tried a lot of things. He's tried being wild. He's tried being a wrestler. Now he's trying moving up from 185 to light heavyweight at 205. Just doesn't feel like it's going to work. Feels to me like the UFC probably sees Pauga as a little bit marketable coming off the um, Ultimate Fighter and is setting him up for a pretty easy win in his first fight. Um, you do have to be scared of it because it is his first like sort of real fight in the UFC other than that Contender Series finale. You did see him get touched in that one. You do see sometimes Jordan Wright strike wildly and connect, whether it be elbow, knee, punch. Um, but I feel pretty confident Pauga's going to win. An interesting angle on this fight. Pauga's not really a finisher, but Jordan Wright puts his chin out there to be hit, and I think there's going to be a pretty decent size difference in this one. So yeah, Pauga probably wins by knockout or TKO. Um, but he's not that's not really his style. His style is more to work the jab and come with the cross or the hook or the overhand. Um, and he has a lot of decision wins on his record. The over 1.5 in this fight right now is like plus 150. I haven't bet it. It's a squirrely fight. I'm still trying to decide whether I actually want to put any money on that because there is a chance that either one of these guys knocks the other out in the first round. More likely, I would see Jordan Wright getting put to sleep. But yeah, I feel pretty good about Pauga. I have a small bet on him just because haven't really seen him against UFC level competition, and I don't think Jordan Wright is UFC level competition either. I've beat that to death on this show. I just don't think this guy is any good or belongs. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm at with this one. What do you got?
Yeah, I was literally, it's funny as I was looking up the odds on the over and unders. And I did see the over was set at 1.5 at plus 170. I do like that. I do
Plus
think,
170. That's even better.
yeah, I think the only person that's Jordan Wright could mess this up.
He could
Because
mess it up just by sticking his chin in the
yes,
air and
or finally putting something together and just catching Palgua with something.
yeah,
So
he got caught in his last fight, so
he's the one who
it's
could literally
possible.
mess this up. Um, in no way is there any value on Jordan Wright though. Do not as a better either don't bet at all or do, don't bet Jordan Wright. Whatever you do,
Right. Called
because
favorite or pass.
yeah, I am not at all liking Jordan Wright. I think this is a fight where if he loses here, which I see him losing, how does the UFC keep him on the
Oh,
roster?
he's cut. He's cut,
Um,
especially if he gets knocked out again. But if he loses at all, I think he's done here. I think they're
yeah,
setting up Pauga for a win and right to go fight in wherever will take him.
yeah, right.
Like I want to say PFL Bellator, but I don't know that he's even good to fight in those
Go
promotions.
fight Jake Paul. Go fight Jake Paul.
Bare
Um,
knuckle boxing. He's
so
too clean cut for bare knuckle boxing.
yeah, right. So I definitely see
Jake
Paul.
Paul and him though is not a bad idea. Sorry to keep cutting you
No,
off, but
it's
that's
okay.
an interesting fight idea. They're about the same size too. They could probably make that fight at like 185.
It would be interesting, but I don't even think Jake Paul wants that because he knows the money would not be there. So I definitely see Palga winning this
True.
one. I do like the over here, and I have put Palga in some parlays. Again, not big ones, but it's enough to sprinkle a little bit on there to try to get together a couple lines here. But I do think Palga is a safe play to put in some parlays. I think he gets the win here.
I love it. We're definitely hard on the same side.
All right, that brings us to the main event of the evening. Um, she's a dog, and she's a dog because she continually shows how well she can fight. But she's going against a very, very big up and comer who has had an amazing streak here over her last couple fights since she has entered the UFC. So this is definitely an exciting matchup. And we have Jessica Andrade, who's coming in at 24-9. She is the minus 130 favorite going against Erin Blanchfield, who is 10-1, who is the dog at plus 110. This is a woman's flyweight fight. Andrew, how are you seeing this one play out?
Yeah. So I'm heavily invested on Jessica Andrade in this fight. Um, I did that before the line moved, so I feel a little unlucky because I got my bets in at like minus 175, minus 165. I think I got a maybe minus 150. There's a minus 130 out there now. Um, And there is one thing I've seen which makes me a little nervous, and it makes sense, but there's some rumors flying around that Andrade's hands might still be beat up a little bit from punching Lauren Murphy in the face and over and over and over again just about a month ago. Uh, and so that does give me a little bit of pause, but not even enough pause to hedge or anything like that. And I think I've got a little over 5 units on Andrade in different ways. She is taking this fight on 1 week's notice, so that's definitely something to be noted. After having just fought a month ago, she is the way better striker in this matchup. She's also strong and a good grappler. She has fought the best of the best. She's fought the champions in multiple weight classes. Um, she's beaten some really, really good competition and has only lost to the best of the best. I mean, her losses, you're talking like to Wei Li and to Valentina Shevchenko. Um, you're talking about Rose Namajunas beat her, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, like the best women's fighters out there are the only fighters that are beating Jessica Andrade in recent years. And even going back, I mean, Raquel Pennington, Marion Renault as losses. Those are no slouch of fighters, and that you're looking at 8 years ago for those fights. So you can even kind of throw those out the window at this point. Um, Erin Blanchfield is a really impressive prospect. She's 23 years old. She's been blown through competition that she's been given so far, but her level of competition and some of the things she's shown are a little suspect to me. I mean, she's had 4 fights in the UFC, and if you go back to her first fight in the UFC, she went to decision against Sarah Alpar. Sarah Alpar, who I mean, she's 9-6 now. Not even sure if she's still in the UFC anymore. But then you have the Miranda Maverick win. That's an impressive win. You have a JJ Aldrich win where she was really struggling in that fight before finding the submission. And then you have the recent win against Molly McCann, which I will give was incredibly impressive. Also, I will say Molly McCann, ball of energy on the feet, not known for her ground game, and Erin dominated once it got to the ground there. She is a decent wrestler, an incredible grappler. Her striking is not all that great. Um, and I just don't think like logic would say that Jessica Andrade, who's on a decent winning streak, who's been at the top of a couple of weight classes for a very long time, wouldn't I mean, definitely nervous seeing that like her hand might still be injured, but like I don't think she would take the fight on a week's notice if it was a bad injury, and I don't think she would take the fight if she wasn't pretty confident that she could win, that she could stuff the takedowns, and is just obviously way better on the feet. So I feel pretty good about Andrade. I have a bunch of money on her already. Even with the hand injury stuff making me a little nervous, I don't think I'm going to hedge any of that. What I'm questioning is now that the line is down to minus 130, do I want to have even more exposure and put even more money on her now that it's an even more favorable line? That's where I'm debating. I might just stick with what I already have because it's already a lot, and there is a chance that as the fight wears on, her gas tank doesn't hold up with 1 week's notice, and with Erin's going for takedowns over and over and over again, and possibly holding her down at times. Um, but minus 130, I mean, I was very happy to bet Andrade at minus 175, so I should be happy to bet her at minus 130 even more. So we'll see if I put any more on it or if I just stick with what I have. But yeah, I'm heavy on that side.
Yeah, I'm glad you have a lot of confidence. I think Andrade is a dog. The fact that she's taking this fight, you know, just literally I think it'll be like 1 month exactly, like by the time this thing goes off. But she did beat the face off of Murphy, and that does worry me. If I haven't heard that about the hand. So now that you said that, that does kind of worry me. The thing that really worries me though is Blanche. It's the UFC, and we're talking again about someone who Blanchfield's only path really of victory I see here is taking this thing to the ground and working and finding a submission. And
Totally.
because the UFC is so squarely like that, I see that happening. Possibly. I think Andrade has to keep this thing on the feet. She's no slouch on the ground, but I wouldn't even mess around
She
with
can
someone.
grapple.
I don't want to mess around with someone like Blanchfield. I do think Andrade is going to be the stronger person here, though. So I don't think Blanchfield has come across someone who's as strong as Andrade because while Blanchfield may have the better technique, she's going to be facing someone who is a dog and is very strong, and that's hard sometimes. You've seen people try to take on Josh who were also good grapplers, and they couldn't be successful there because of how strong she is, and she can get back up and she can scramble and get out of those positions. But all it takes is getting into one unfavorable spot, and Blanchfield could capitalize here. I do think the Andrade money line is the way to go. If you're looking for something on the Blanchfield side, I think you got to try to work in her Blanchfield by sub. So if you're really heavy on Blanchfield and you're liking Blanchfield, I think you're better off looking at the sub line for Blanchfield. Um, 'Cause I think if this thing's going to the decision, I think Andrade has probably done enough by then to get that. I don't see this as Blanchfield laying on her the whole fight because Andrade can get up. She's very good at getting off the ground. So I think the only way Blanchfield wins is by submission. I think any other outcome we're looking at either an Andrade finish, or Andrade just dominating the scorecards and just dominating the significant strike because the amount of volume that she can put out. So this is definitely going to be a fun fight. It's definitely a true test. Blanchfield, welcome to the top. The one thing about
If she
Andrade,
wins this, she might get a title shot.
yeah, and the one thing about Andrade though
Blanchfield.
is like she's that person who has made it to the top time and time and time and just hasn't conquered it. She, I know she's itching. She's just fight the fact that she's picking up this fight. She doesn't have to. She could totally wait for her next title shot. She's earned
She
it.
is a former champ, actually. She
Yeah,
didn't hold on to it very long, but she was a champion at one point.
but she's definitely earned a title shot. So she didn't have to take this fight and on short notice. So the fact that she did, like you said, she knows what she's doing. I do like Andrade money line here. But again, if you're looking for a line on Blanchfield, go ahead and just take the submission because there's no other way this fight's going her way unless she's working a submission.
And people will talk about like Andrade's takedown defense, like, oh, Valentina Shevchenko took her down 7 times. That's Valentina Shevchenko, and that's the threat of Valentina Shevchenko's striking. Blanchfield's striking is nowhere near that level.
No.
Um, and so yeah. All right, we're running out of
Awesome.
time. And we want to get some KO bets and some lottery tickets
Yeah,
fast.
my KO bet is gonna be um William Knight.
I don't hate it. I'm gonna go with Zach Pauga as my KO bet. I don't think I'm gonna be betting that because that line is um it's minus money. It's minus 134 is the best line I see, but that's the one I'm going for. I'm going for the easy one, seemingly anyway. What do you got for a lottery ticket?
All right, we're gonna go Miller, Knight, Parisian, Pagua, and Andrade.
Okay. I like that. Um, Looking at underdogs who I think can win this weekend, Owen St. Preux, Jamal Emmers. I mean, if we're going like real true,
Less than a
like
minute.
this is a lottery ticket, Lena Landsberg, throw that plus 400 in there. Give yourself a real lottery ticket. If you put like, uh, I don't know, let's say Emmers, Landsberg, and Jim Miller together, just those three at all plus money, and then throw Andrade too in there at the small minus money.
Awesome. All right, you heard it from here. Thanks again for everyone for watching. Tune in to our next week's episode and check out Bet MMA tips and our Twitter at recliner_report. And as always, keep the change.
Keep the change.